I am upgrading my Onefinity CNC to this new Journeyman X50 rail. It gives me an additional 16 inches of width on the rail, but it'll keep the same depth of cut. So the cut area will then be approximately 48 by 32. Full disclosure, I bought this machine with my own money years ago. I was doing some research. I wanted to get into a CNC. They were the best one at the best price point, and that's why I went with them. Since then, I have started a working relationship with them. We have done some things together, and they sent me this upgrade, and I'm gonna put it on. I also built a table that mine sits on, and the original dimensions were only for the rail that I had because I wanted some space on the left-hand side for the monitor. A closer look at the table and some of the things I plan to do to upgrade it. So the rail we are replacing is this one here. This is the Woodworker with the stiffy rail on top of it, which just adds an extra rail. And it has been a workhorse for me. This is the regular spindle mount with the Makita router in it. It does fine for what I'm doing. It actually has 3 different heights you can set it at. I've typically kept mine at the middle mounting point for whatever that's worth. So as you can see over here on this side, this leaves plenty of space to put things over here, mount your monitor, do whatever you want. Rockler helped me out by sending me a bunch more T-Track when I told them I was going to be upgrading this thing. So thanks for that, Rockler, appreciate it. They sent me a bunch of different clamp options. I really like these things. I've been using them for a while now. They've got the toggle bolt or the T-bolts that go in the track, and they have a little bit of give to them and these rubbery tips, so they hold work really well. They also sent me a little beefier version with the aluminum. I think I tend to just gravitate toward this because they're made out of like a phenolic or some type of plastic material, so that if you cut into them, and you know, this one actually has a cut in it, it's not gonna mess up your bit. For kind of a top-down view, I've got you set up. You can see a little bit more of how the table is set up. The monitor comes with this mount that actually mounts to the front of your rail here, the Y rail. I didn't care for that. It always seemed like it angled it really far down for someone that's tall like me. So I actually preferred to just use the same mount here, flat on the table, and then, where are the magnets? Then I just hook it to it like that, drilled a hole and let the wires pass through over here to the controller. That has worked for me, but that will no longer work because with the longer rail, this rail is gonna come almost to the edge. So I'll probably either have to find, like this is probably okay where I house the tools and touch plate and all of that. And the controller can probably stay on the side like this. That's worked pretty well for me. You can put one of those drag chain systems in to kind of contain that a little bit more, and I've just not done that. Let's unbox this thing. Just cut it open here. You want to keep your box in case you ever have to store or ship it back. They're very specific sizes, often with specific moldings, foam for it. That is a beefy rail right there, goodness. And it is quite heavy. Ugh. May have to get my wife to come out here and help me set it on there. You just take it off of both ends. Oh, it's a big boy. And then here are more cables. I can't tell if these are different or maybe just longer. It has motor settings and different things to make sure to hold on to. I'm gonna speed through taking some of this apart. All it is loosening the bolts that holds it down to the table, and then I've got to take the spindle mount off and remove the bolts that hold it down into the Y rails so that I can put the new rail on. So no need to watch me do all of that. I'm gonna do a time lapse. I have disconnected everything, the wires, 4 bolts on this side, 4 bolts on that side, and the spindle mount. I am ready to just lift this thing off. Oh, that's a big boy. Next one's even bigger. Good thing I have the box for this one because I can put it right back in it. Fun fact, I did it kind of as an experiment, but all of these strips of MDF were held just using the blue tape and CA glue method, and it has held for years. I can't even get that one up. I'm gonna have to get a pry bar. when you have that much surface, it apparently holds really well. There it goes. All right. It was right about this point that I realized this table was not quite wide enough to put this upgraded machine on. I needed to add a piece. And I thought I was going to have to build some type of mount for this monitor, but turns out I was able to orient it in a different way and go back to using the original mounts in the Y-rail. This one is turned kind of perpendicular, but it seems to work fine for me. I came up with this table design years ago when I first got the machine, not really knowing about a wider rail in the future, because at the time I had the biggest machine. Well, they just keep innovating and changing, and I've told people, based on measurements that I looked at, that this one was fine. As you'll see, the rail will actually fit on this table, but I need to add an actual piece on the edge here because the feet spread just beyond the rail. So just know, if you go get my free plans that I've got linked down in the description, it's still a very good table. It's a solid table. You might have to add a little something, or if you're building it and haven't yet built it, just extend your dimensions really by about an inch, inch and a half, and everything should work out fine. The depth of the table is more than plenty, and yeah, you should be good. I'm just using a 2x4 here, and I jointed and planed it down, but even after doing that, it had a little bit of bow to it, probably because I let it sit for a few days. So I just worked with clamps as I went down this board to make sure that every part of it was exactly dead level with the top of my table. When I finally got the machine situated on the table exactly where I wanted and it was all squared up, I could put the rest of the bolts back down to the table. I wanted to address something really quickly. I got the rail back on here. I was having some trouble with it being out of square. When you measure the diagonals of a square, both diagonals should be the same. If they're not, the longer side needs to be shoved toward the shorter diagonal. Don't know if that makes sense, but I figured out that part of the problem was right here where you bolt your rail to your other rail. I had just kind of hand tightened these, and there is a little bit of play there. So I made sure to get them very squared up and then bolted these down securely on both sides to where your gaps, like it's perfect right here. Then as we shoved this all the way to the back, it really squared up the machine, and took care of itself. So I just went through and put all of the bolts in, as you saw. This thing is moving back and forth pretty well. I've got a few more things to kind of button up, and then I need to figure out what to do with the work holding. That's coming up. There are 3 different levels you can mount this machine. On your Z, you'll see 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So whichever one you pick on the top, pick the same on the bottom to make sure that you line up with your holes there. But I'm just gonna go back medium right in the middle. That seemed to do most of what I needed it to last time. So I'll just mount it in these mounting holes back in the middle hole, and we'll go from there. There we go. Might as well go ahead and check all these others. Good time to do a little maintenance. Take this cap back off. Just route your cord underneath there. And put it back down. Go ahead and plug it in. All right. I don't remember if I ordered a different cord when I originally got my machine. Maybe I ordered a longer one. This new rail comes with a longer cord for your Y1 on this farthest post, but my cord still reaches. So I can just keep this as a backup. That's handy. I don't know if your machine will be the same way. Just check it out.
I'm really not sure why I waited so long to do this upgrade. I've had this rail for a few months and I finally took time to do it, and boy am I glad. The capability this thing has now is really just expanded beyond what I ever thought I would have. I didn't have any MDF pieces left over from other projects that were long enough to do what I wanted to do for the wasteboard, so I ran to the store and grabbed a sheet. Here's a quick tip. Look to see if there are any damaged sheets at the store. I happen to go to Lowe's. They will mark those down at a discount if it still meets your needs and they get rid of the piece. So this one had some marks on it, but it was not going to affect what I was going to use it for, so I got a nice discount. I put my flattening bit into the CNC. This is just a 1-inch carbide bit that I use to flatten things. It's the widest bit that I own. So, in theory, that is the widest amount that I'll ever be able to cut as far as the front to back depth. So, I put the machine all the way forward with that bit in there and marked as far as it can reach. I want to be just a little on the short side of that, I guess I'll say, so that I can make sure any piece that I put down there, so long as it's not past that mark, I can reach it with a flattening bit. Then to find the true cut area of this CNC, I put a smaller bit in the machine and went to each of the four corners, marking where that ultimate limit was. Then I just used a long straight edge to kind of connect those pieces so that I could see exactly where I needed to lay my spoil board. Onefinity sells something called the Quick Change Wasteboard, and their take on it is just some T-track with MDF strips in between. That's basically a version of what I did here. That's what I decided to go with. I had different strips, as you saw before, on my previous setup, and they worked really well. I just wanted to make it a little wider and more capable. So these are longer T-tracks than I had before, and overall, obviously, with the larger rail, I have a larger cuttable area. For putting the wasteboard down, I started with one of the T-tracks and just lined it up with the line that I made with that bounding box drawn by the machine. I got that one nice and square, you know, side to side and front to back, and then I just alternated T-track and a piece of MDF and a T-track and a piece of MDF. I just screwed through the MDF at the corners and sunk those screws really low, so there was no real chance of me hitting them, because if I was going to hit those, I was going to hit the T-track also. The upgraded rail is larger and has larger stepper motors, so you actually need to reconfigure some of the settings for how to drive those. Onefinity puts a little card in the box that tells you exactly how to change these settings. I followed them and had no trouble with it. All that was left was to flatten the new spoil board. It had a slight hollow in the center, but with a little bit of flattening, I was able to take care of that, and everything is really flat now.
I ended up extending the rails out more this way because I thought having the clamping solutions a little closer to me would end up being better. I think that's going to be good. If it ends up being a pain, obviously I can move any of that, but rather than that excess being at the very back of the machine where I can't reach it as well, I thought it was probably a better idea to kind of have it out here where you can slip the clamp in, kind of have the clamp maybe out here a little ways if you're clamping right on the edge. We'll see how that turns out. That is the Onefinity Journeyman upgrade. I'm really glad to have this done. I've got a couple projects I need to use this wider rail for already. I do need to address the dust collection. I've never just loved the dust boot that came on it, but I've seen quite a few other setups. I'd love to have your help. Leave me suggestions down below. If you have a setup that you like, or if you've seen one, you know, drop me a comment about it and let me know what that is. See ya.